Hello, Steve. It's good to have you at London and seeing each other once again from the Seoul, right?
The community event in Seoul,
Yeah.
That's where I first met you.
Were you at the Shanghai family thing?
Yeah, I was at the Shanghai family
Yeah, I
event
saw
as
you
well.
there also. Yeah, so yeah, it's been like 2 or 3 months. I think this is really good opportunity for all the block producers to gather up right now because there are lots of issues that lots of community members wants to talk about it. So this is actually a great time. But before we start, can you tell us more about EOS Tribe and what they have done, and like a little bit about your experience as a block producers and before that?
Okay, my name is Steve Floyd with EOS Tribe. I'm the co-founder of EOS Tribe. My other partner is Eugene Luzgan. We've been active in the EOS community respectively since the beginning. Eugene was active in some of the very first meetups going back to November, and as you know, the Dawn 2.0 days, if that gives you any reference. And I started getting active at the end of January. I started my local group, EOS Dallas. I come from like a user experience and content strategy background, and speak at a lot of the conferences in that space prior to coming to blockchain. What got us motivated in our team, which consists of Anna Taylor, Raleigh Felton, Adam Estohili, and a guy, Todd, that we work with, Todd Crown, that does a lot of back-end stuff. We basically represent free market solutions. We believe in the technology, and we're active on a lot of different initiatives like the Ghostbusters core initiative, which Eugene was a part of. I actually helped do the UI on both the EOS portal initiative that helped unlock the chain, and also I actually did the UX and UI and coded most of the front end for EOS Votes, which is the referendum UI. And those are some of the community initiatives we've done. We've done a lot more than that. We did I think the international meetup group launch t-shirts that we gave away to like over 60 different cities. We commonly speak and sponsor 3 or 4 different US-based meetups, which are EOS Denver, which we co-founded, EOS Dallas, EOS SLC. We also have other sponsor relationships with like Chicago and other US-based meetups. We're pretty heavily in the US. We consider ourselves probably one of the top block producer candidates out of the US. Maybe it's up to the community to decide that, I guess. Votes are not always relevant to
how much you put in,
right? You know what I mean? So
system. I really know that how much EOS Tribe has been transparent about their works, and like it's amazing to see that you guys actually put down even the single part that you guys bought on the server, like
right.
On the Excel files and the price and everything.
We put out financial reports, ownership disclosure, our BP JSON, our Reg producer agreement. We've been very diligent to try to be one of the most transparent BPs, both with our background and where we invest our money, because that's our job as a block producer.
I mean, you guys were a big part of the Ghostbusters, so can you actually tell more story about that?
Well, I think, I can't speak to like exactly, who the ABP was, who launched the chain. Part of the agreement of that initiative was to not discuss it. I do know that what's public, and that, as you know, Jim had reached out to Eugene and just asked who the sharp guys were, and Eugene pointed to the best guys, which I would say openly, Igor, Yates, Eric, all have done a phenomenal job, the heavy lifting,
yes,
of the network. But if you really want to get down to who reached out and started that path,
gather those packs,
like Jim and Eugene, that was the person that Jim had reached out to. I think Eugene was largely left out of that conversation, but if we want to be fair to Eugene and his hard work, he's more of the senior, kind of guy. He's the CTO type of guy. He has a breadth of experience in enterprise. He's done work with Deutsche Bank and obviously Federal Reserve. He checks out at a very high level of security and background. And I would think would be the type of person that the real investors, would want to see a pedigree like that.
Yeah.
Not maybe some 30-year-old guy who it's his first startup and he's doing it out of his house, you know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of a difference in terms of Eugene's approach. I think that he doesn't, but he's not outspoken. I'm the outspoken one. I'll tell you my opinion, but Eugene's more reserved, and he doesn't want to get out there and wave his hands or anything. He's very humble about the work that he does, but I think more people in the East and in Asia should know about Eugene's background and things that he's contributed to. So that was kind of beyond that, that was more in the group. And you would have to ask those people, because I don't know for a fact. I just know what we have seen and heard and what I just said, but I don't know much more than that. You would have to ask that group exactly what happened beyond that. But
yeah, I think you have been like very active in like a Western community, like especially in the United States. Like it seems like you got lots of credit for it. Yeah.
Right. A lot of the, people don't realize this until they go to the U.S. that they might perceive other Western block producers to be the more prominent ones because they're more popular in the East and in Europe. They've focused more energy to positioning. But if you actually went to America and you went to some of these smaller areas, our names would come up a lot. We do have a strong culture. You know what I mean? And it's always been built on the ideals that I think we started this with, that, transparency, try to bring best-in-class technology and expertise and just apply all the collective knowledge from Eugene's background and, obviously in the enterprise and different, his experiences in kind of Fortune 50 stuff. And then I come from a small to mid-sized business background running my own agency and user experience kind of stuff to, put those experiences together to have maybe a BP operation that it comes with a little more teeth, not just idealism. People kind of perceive us as idealists, and that's not the case. I mean, we believe you should have some ideals, but it's very much pragmatic. And, if you can look at our investments, and what we've put our money into in our quarterly reports, and it kind of shows we are good operators. We're not just blowing the money on new equipment and just purely traveling and the hype machine. We try to put more work into the actual community because I thought that was kind of what we're supposed to be doing here.
I think you guys have to actually show all those transparency to you have to plate them and give it to them in the face.
Right. We're learning that, but we thought that it's better for other people to do that for you than to be look at me, but that is part of the game, so something we're learning. We certainly we aren't mad about it, but that's part of the game.
Yeah. Anyway, EOS Portal. Can you explain more about it?
EOS Portal I will completely say, was the genius of Caesar from Nebula Protocol, Quesarito, and Nathan James, the great Nathan James from Scatter did 90% of the project. I had just kind of fleshed out a direction for the UI, had helped with some of the marketing assets and communication, and kind of helped drive a little bit of the design thinking in those initial phases. Whereas the EOS Votes initiative, I actually led that a lot more and actually coded the React front end for that myself. You guys can go look at the repo. And Nathan Rempel from Generios and Dennis Carey from Denny from EOS Nation had done brilliant work on the tally system and kind of the middle of the stack. So they deserve just as much credit in terms of the physical labor as I do, but in terms of kind of the thought leadership of not branding the portal, so everyone shares it, and the approach of education that we should treat EOS Votes just like we did EOS Portal. That came from me and Nathan's discussions. I can claim that, what I mean. So, but the back end and some of the really heavy lifting, I don't. I'm not a back-end developer. I'm a UX guy. But I guess if it didn't look good, no one would use it, right? So.
Yeah. Since you're in London, I'm pretty sure you're here for the hackathon also, but it seems like lots of people are just here for the unconference. I'm pretty sure there are some topics that you want to discuss in the unconference. I want to know, what are those?
I would like to have a better understanding of the community's views on V1, V2, and now the emerging V3, which is a hybrid. I'd like to see more conversations about, could UBI, URI be a worker proposal? Should we gut or get rid of all of the worker proposal? I certainly understand, allocating $1 million in funds from the EOS.savings account into a WPS savings account and kind of blocking it off. So if something does go wrong, it doesn't like come out of the funds. I agree with the approach. I think that everybody is going to look at that initiative as a money play. Like no matter what they do, they could totally be putting their best foot forward, and people are going to be putting under a microscope. I came in the group recently. I've done it in a few phases because I've been so heavy in the referendum UI that I've really fundamentally understood back like 3 or 4 months ago when I first started saying, wait, referendum is kind of the next big thing, because the referendum wouldn't, the worker proposal won't work without referenda, to actually make that happen, the actual voting and tally system to make that happen. And they've had a lot of challenges in that group. Props to everyone in the core referendum group. EOS Canada, Alex has done a brilliant job. Amazing work that he's done, and Jesta as well, and from Grey Mass has also contributed a lot to the thinking and staying, in line with the best practices of DPoS. And even though he's not been directly active at a high level, even Luke Stokes, that, hey, any centralized effort is not in the spirit of DPoS. And I think that we're in this weird place where we do need to have like centralized educational efforts, but not centralized voting efforts, where educating them and giving them options is just kind of this first pass, this little 3 to 6 month period to get the voters up to speed, and then those will break off into their UIs of choice. Like the actual referendum voting UIs could happen in the Grey Mass wallet, in the simple EOS wallet, EOS Sys's wallet. Like they'll happen in lots of different places, and they can choose which referenda that they choose to show and which they support. But I think with like EOS votes, it would be more, I know I'm jumping off from EOS Portal, but like I look at it as the same thing. It's the same problem. If we didn't have EOS Portal, I feel like there would be a good percentage of token holders that, one, didn't have an option to vote, but two, didn't even understand how or what it was. So we need those like community-led efforts that are non-branded. And that's my big push on some of these problems that we have. If we would just come together and put a lot of focus on education. That we couldn't individually do all ourselves, but together we could scale very quickly, are in the spirit of DPoS. Now, does it need to be centralized and stay the primary place to vote? No. It's just a place to educate them on what the issues are and provide a better understanding for those pitfalls is the way I see it. But
I totally agree with you. Right now, there's a knowledge gap between block producers and the general EOS community.
Totally.
And as for me, I think we need to take some more time on the educations and
that we can't individually do. It's really hard to educate an entire world on very technical things that even individually we may as a group not understand every nuance. We need each other to fully understand those pitfalls, and those nuances, and get those different perspectives. And that is in the nature of DPoS. You know what I mean? If we're coming together to have an equal kind of understanding of these issues, that's good and good-spirited at a time when there's a huge knowledge gap, like you said. Do we need to do that with everything? Maybe not. Let the system figure it out. But really difficult educational things, I think it would be in good taste for us to come together more and use our resources to push those things forward. That's just my take, and that's the commonality I see between Portal and EOS votes. But they'll have their life cycle. People aren't using EOS Portal as much. They might use it to check rankings, and some people who want to cast multiple votes from accounts may find that easier. But overall, they've broken out into, like I said, some of the other wallets. So, and that's the way it should be. There'll be many UIs and many different interfaces to interact with the system and with voting. But in these early stages, no one even knows what it is. When I was talking about referendum to a friend who knew a lot, I was like, what is that? And he knows a lot about EOS. And he's like, I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, well, without it, we won't have the worker proposal system. Which is, people don't realize this, I was on the very first call before any of the worker proposal system people showed up with Thomas and 3 other people. The very first worker proposal meeting they had, I was on those calls. But when it came out that we wouldn't have worker proposal without referendum, I switched my focus. And you can go back and look at our post on our Steemit account at EOS Tribe. and look at the thought leadership for that. And what I was thinking the last 3 months, I thought that a unified initiative to kind of walk people through worker proposal system. Now the worker, as Jay said, the worker proposal system has some nuances and different schema that are not really the same as the way that the referendum would function.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that there can't be one interface to educate them on what it is. They could break out and go to those more niche interfaces, but we never had a plan to do the entire system if people were going to do the other parts. Like with the EOS votes, we're just going to link off to the worker proposal system site and they can go there. We're not going to build that into our system.
Okay.
Yeah. If they build referendum into their system, we may consider it, but overall, that's not our focus.
Okay. Well, for me, it's like there are so many options that block producers are saying, like how to do the referendum and stuff like that.
It's confusing.
It's really confusing.
Right? And that's why we may need like more central places to start, but with the goal of definitely
getting all the options together.
Right. Well, we plan on putting all the options on the EOS vote site.
That's good.
So we're not going to be biased. Like you can use this interface to do research and you can go use your wallet of choice.
One of the main concerns that I have right now is that, as you already know, sometimes doing lots of work is not getting to the ears to the community members. So even that there are many options available, but community might know just one or two options. So maybe getting those other options that community members do not know to the community members, I think that's another important part that we should more focus on also.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem. Like we take things for granted that we've known and researched, and we're like further along in those conversations because we follow it every day. We look into these issues, but the community at large is mostly speculators at this point. There's a cross section of people who are interested in the governance layer, but the vast majority of people that I've run into are just speculating on what's the price, when moon, when am I going to get my gains? And that's kind of that's the bad part about crypto in general, is you have people who are more or less driven by the money aspect, and then you have people who are driven by technology, and you can have both. Neither are wrong or right. It's just all part of the ecosystem. So.
Yes. So I want those people to actually express their opinions,
and they should.
Yeah,
even smaller token holders, these are your tokens. The tokens have more value than just gains. You can vote with them, you can support BP operations that help essentially the price of that token increase by doing good work, and they don't make that correlation. And that's my biggest concern now, is that the people who are adding a lot of tangible value to the network are not being rewarded, and that will cause a situation essentially over time that could lower the value of the network and the coin. So you don't make those token holders out there, whether you've got 100 or 50,000 or 500 million, on an exchange, I don't know if it's 500 million. I think it's close to 100, 120 million on some of the exchanges collectively.
Oh, yeah.
But collectively across 5 exchanges, they wield a lot, right?
Yeah.
And they don't realize that by diversification, by putting strong BP teams in who are committed and have proven to be good operators and manage their resources well, they are actually hurting themselves and their long-term investment. And if they were smart, they would get more diversification in the network. It's very important that most of the especially Asian, BP operations, whales, exchanges do understand the correlation between smaller teams who have some idealism for the network and are committed versus purely like a mining operation. It's just a dividend and money to them, when the implications of doing that correctly, doing it in the spirit of the network, and investing heavily in education, investing in infrastructure and resources actually, builds the value of the network. And actually increases the token price, and more dApps and resources are built out, and that actually grows the ecosystem. So they should make that correlation more closely and realize that by letting us collect rewards, by voting us in a position to be liquid and to have some liquidity, they're helping themselves. They're helping their own stake in their own investment. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But maybe that's just my opinion. I would just say vote for EOS Tribe, PROD. That's EOS Tribe, PROD. You know, we would like to see the community more engaged in areas of governance in general, and to hold block producers accountable. This is where I agree a lot with you know, some of my other Western BPs that, as Kevin has said, like, you know, BPs should be deathly afraid of token holders. You know, if we were in the spirit of the network, we would be very mindful of what token holders wanted, and you know, just spend time to actually educate yourself. If you are a token holder of EOS, look beyond the gains. You know, just spend a little bit of time to like look into what the system does and the implications of a system like this, and how EOS has created a global sovereign, you know, nation and network of that's bridged cultural divides, economic divides, and we're some of the sharpest, like in our network, like most down to earth people that you'll meet, and not just EOS Tribe, but all these guys, Acro EOS, you know, Node One, EOS Detroit, and a lot of other like smaller like boutique BP operations are. You know, I would just ask token holders, look more into the smaller BPs you might have been overlooking, because we're doing very significant things. We just, some of us don't do the hand waving and we don't put a spotlight on everything that we did. We're too busy doing the work. So that's the message I would try to send to anyone in Asia, anyone in Europe that is invested in EOS, to just look beyond the token. Look at what the technology does and support smaller BP operations.
Well, thank you for being here for the interview, and let's just say goodbye to the EOS community. Alright, that was nice.